After becoming the president of ROC, Yuan was getting arrogant and wanted to seek more power. His followers also flattered him and persuaded him to abolish ROC and set up his own dynasty. Yuan concurred. He declared the end of ROC and held a ceremony to become the emperor of the China. However, the Xinhan Revolution had put the idea of republic deep into people's minds. They wanted equal rights and would never allow an emperor to oppress them. After Yuan's coronation, Sun Zhongshan started the National Protection War to defend ROC. Obviously, Yuan miscalculated his support. Almost all the provincial leaders supported the war against him, including those who had expressed their support before his ceremony. Even many of his lieutenants in the Beiyang army rebelled him. Facing this widespread opposition, Yuan fell ill and died in depression. After Yuan's death, there was no single power that could dominate China. The Beiyang army fell apart into several cliques. The Beiyang government could only nominally control the whole country. China entered into a period of wars between warlords, with each more or less supported by a foreign power. There were large and small warlords and cliques, but the four major military cliques were Zhili, Anhui, Fengtian, and Guangxi, all named after a province in China. The first two were initially parts of the Beiyang army, and the last two were local Qing armies from the Fengtian and Guangxi provinces. Feng Guozhang and Duan Qirui were the early leaders of the Zhili and Anhui cliques. They were previously the most senior officers under Yuan Shikai. The Fengtian leader Zhang Zuolin was initially a bandit in Fengtian but later got into the local Qing army. With maneuvers and smartness, he was promoted to be a leader in the army and controlled the province. Then he studied wars against other local armies in northeast China and united the area in his hand. The Guangxi clique was not powerful early in the game, but later under the command of Li Zhongren and Bai Congxi, it became one of the major forces in China. The Zhili clique produced a more powerful warlord than other cliques. After Feng Guozhang, there were Cao Kun, Wu Peifu, and Feng Yuxiang. To fight for land, resource, and influence, the warlords sometimes united with one another and sometimes assault one another. Allies could quickly turn into enemies, and enemies quickly became friends. Several large-scale wars had broken out throughout China. In the order of Duan Qirui, Feng Guozhang, Cao Kun, Wu Peifu, Feng Yuxiang, and Zhang Zuolin, they each controlled the central Beiyang government for a brief period. The wars were not only fought between cliques, but also within cliques. To gain an advantage, the warlords would trade some national interests with foreigners to get their military help, but most of these deals were handled in secret as they did not want to be seen as a traitor of the country. The Beiyang government still nominally governed the whole country. All warlords had sworn allegiance to the government. But in reality, the local warlords did not follow the Beiyang government's orders. They were kinds of kings on their own land. For those who controlled the Beiyang government, they treated it as a tool to expand their political interests. Democracy was abandoned in practice. Some even tried to change the constitution to strengthen their dictatorship. Seeing the chaos in China, Sun Zhongshan was deeply concerned and initiated the constitutional protection movement to overthrow the warlord-controlled Beiyang government. The movement was based in Guangzhou, the capital of the southern Guangdong province. Sun thought his movement would won the support of the more pro-republic warlords in the south, but except for a few who were really into his cause, most southern warlords had their own agenda. They either wanted to take the opportunity to expand their power or kept their troops from going to the battlefield. As a result, the movement failed. Sun took the lesson that the warlords were unreliable. He needed to find a new way to rebuild China from the warlord chaos. At the time, the October Revolution broke out in Russia. The communist leader Lenin overthrew the Tsar and established the Soviet Union. Inspired by Russia's success, Sun began to study Marxism and communicated with Lenin. Moscow later sent representatives to meet Sun in China. They agreed to cooperate to advance the revolution in China. After meeting with Li Dazhao, one of the founders of the Communist Party of China, Sun created a revolution formula comprising three principles: allying with Russia, allying with the CPC, the Communist Party of China, and supporting workers and farmers. He then reformed Kuomintang according to this principle. Kuomintang, or KMT, was originated from Tongmenghui, the revolution society Sun founded in Japan. Tongmenghui was initially a loose alliance of several secret revolution groups. After the founding of the ROC, Song Jiaoren, a co-founder of Tongmenghui, decided to transform Tongmenghui into a political party and called it Kuomintang, which meant Nationalist Party in Chinese. He wanted to use it as a check on Yuan Shikai's power in Congress. Not long after Song's transformation, he was assassinated. Though debatable, many people believed it was Yuan who ordered the killing. After the incident, Sun launched the Second Revolution movement to remove Yuan, as Yuan was perceived to have abolished democracy in practice. This happened before Yuan's coronation as emperor. His Beiyang army was still in his full command. He easily defeated the revolution troops. Sun fled to Japan and Kuomintang was torn apart. In Japan, Sun reorganized what was left of Kuomintang and formed the Chinese Revolutionary Party. Sun came back to China during the Nation Protection War and reorganized the Chinese Revolutionary Party into KMT of China. The of China was added to distinguish it from the previous Kuomintang founded by Song, but later it was still widely called the KMT or Kuomintang. The CPC had a relatively short history compared to the KMT. There were many Western socio-political theories. At that time, Marxism was only one of them. It did not attract much attention among Chinese intellectuals when they began to study these theories. However, after the October Revolution, many people began to study Russia and communism, and they perceived that China was in a similar situation as pre-revolution Russia. Marxism began to spread in China. During the World War I, the Beiyang government joined the Allied powers and was on the winning side. Its representatives participated in the Paris Peace Conference and demanded the abolishment of the unequal rights and interests usurped by the losing side in China. However, the Western powers ignored this request and only transferred the unequal rights and interests from the losing side to the winning side. This enriched the Chinese people. The students initiated the May 4th movement in 1919 to oppose the conference. This movement quickly spread across China and all classes of people participated in it. If Xinhai Revolution took the aim at the monarchy, the May 4th movement was an enlightenment for people to fight against imperialism of Western powers. The Chinese Revolution began to include a new aim to expel imperialist foreigners out of the country. The power abuse by Western countries also made Chinese disappointed of their politics. They felt betrayed by the ethics beautifully depicted in their capitalist democratic theories. Some believed that Western democracy was just Western hypocrisy. In contrast, the Soviet Union, led by Lenin, renounced most of its inherited interests in China usurped by the Tsar. This won the favor of the Chinese people and made them more inclined to learn from Russia. People began to think if they could follow the steps of the Russian Revolution. Now, Mao Zedong came to the stage. It was in 1918 when he graduated from the Hunan First Normal University. Raised in the South, he wanted to experience life in Beijing. One of his previous teachers was a professor in Peking University. He helped him to become an interim librarian in the university. Peking University was then an intellectual hub in China. Mao got to know Li Dazhao and Chen Duxiu there. Both were famous early advocates of communism. During his half-year stay in Beijing, Mao became more and more interested in politics and revolution, but did not learn anything about Marxism and Leninism. At the beginning of 1990, he came back to Hunan and founded a journal to comment on current affairs and promote revolution ideas. After the breaking out of the May 4th movement, Mao went to Beijing to lend his support to the movement. During this visit, he became greatly interested in the Russian Revolution and read many books on Marxism and Leninism. The Marxism-Leninist theories gradually became his guiding principles on revolutionary activities. After Beijing, he went to Shanghai to meet with Chen Duxiu. Then he came back to Hunan and landed a job as a primary school teacher. At the meantime, following the Leninist theories, he began to organize labor movement and founded an early communist group that promoted Marxism and Leninism. He was not alone. With the May 4th movement, Marxism-Leninism was widely spread in China. Many local groups were founded to study its theories. Mao's group was one of them. The Communist International, Comintern, was an international organization founded by the Soviet Union to advocate world communism. It noticed the enthusiasm in China and sent representatives to help found the Communist Party of China. In July 1921, representatives from the local communist groups joined together and held the first National Congress of the CPC. The Congress officially announced the establishment of CPC. Chen Duxiu was elected as the General Secretary. Mao was one of the local representatives. After the Congress, he came back to Hunan to continue his labor movement. Under Sun Zhongsan's new revolution formula, KMT agreed to cooperate with CPC on revolution. The way was to have CPC members join KMT individually. KMT held its first National Congress in 1924, which marked the start of this cooperation. Many CPC members attended this Congress, including Mao Zedong. After the failure of the constitutional protection movement, Sun increasingly felt that to achieve his revolution ideal, he had to have his own army. The warlords were untrustworthy as revolutionary partners. Military force led by the revolutionaries was a significant factor in the success of the Russian Revolution. It shed light on Sun's way forward. He planned a military school and invited Soviet commanders to be the teachers. In the summer of 1924, the famous Huangpu Military Academy was founded with Jiang Jieshi as the president and Zhou Enlai as the director of the political department. The academy still existed today in Taiwan as the Republic of China Military Academy. When Sun was planning a military campaign against the North, he did not give up negotiation with the Beiyang government. At this time, Feng Yuxiang and Zhang Zuolin controlled the government jointly. They had recently allied and fought a successful war against another alliance of warlords. Feng was pro-revolution and invited Sun to come to Beijing for a talk. However, when Sun was still on his way to Beijing, Feng was expelled from the government and lost his political influence. Zhang had no interest in revolution and meeting with Sun. Before Sun's departure to Beijing, he was ill. The trip was not easy, and his illness quickly worsened. He passed away not long after his arrival in Beijing. KMT lost its last hope for a peaceful solution with the Beiyang government. Marxism stressed workers as the main acting body to launch communist revolution. Lenin's success depended on his ability to mobilize workers in the cities. Since its founding, CPC had been under guidance of Comintern. The The then CPC leaders, including Mao, spent much of their time on organizing labor movements in the cities. In the winter of 1924, Mao came back to Hunan for a sick leave. He found the Hunan peasants were enthusiastic about the revolution and then organized more than 20 peasants' associations for them. This experience led him to realize the potential and possibility of peasant movement in China. His revolutionary activity in Hunan alerted the local warlords. They wanted to arrest him, and he ran away back to Guangzhou. There, he was appointed as the propaganda chief of KMT. He was also assigned the role to train leaders for organizing peasant movements. After Sun's death in Beijing, Wang Jingwei became the president of the KMT government in Guangzhou, and Jiang Jieshi the commander-in-chief of the KMT army. Both Jiang and Mao were good students when in school. Mao was especially good at writing and helped friends admission exams as the surrogate writer. The professor who helped him in finding a job in Peking University spoke highly of Mao's essays. Jiang studied hard and got admitted into the Baoding Military Academy, one of the best military schools in China at that time. As a top student in the academy, he was sponsored to continue his study in Japan. There, he got to know Chen Qimei, one of Sun Zhongsan's most trusted followers. With Chen's recommendation, Jiang became Sun's associate. Although Jiang's military talent was no match to Mao, he was outstanding among peers with his many years' time in military training. After Chen Qimei was assassinated, Sun relied more and more on Jiang. He had Jiang lead several military campaigns, and the results were not bad. When he was in risk after the southern warlords rebelled him, Jiang was there as his personal guard 24/7. So Jiang Jieshi won Sun Zhongsan's trust and got the opportunity to be the president of the Huangpu Academy and later the commander-in-chief of the KMT army.